Hello friends, and welcome to another installation of my favorite series of videos right now, which is reading Star Wars books. So again, I've done this multiple times, and basically what we're going to be aiming to do is read 3 to 4 Star Wars books. I'll tell you about them, I'll tell you what I'm thinking, and give you recommendations of should you get into this Star Wars world and this Star Wars extended universe, and which books should you check out. So at this point, I've read 3 books for video, so I've read 6 total, and I have found some absolute wins. Basically everything I've read by Claudia Gray, which is Master and Apprentice, Bloodlines, and The Lost Stars, all 5 stars. And then some of the other books I've read, hit or miss. Basically I've discovered that audio is the way to go for all of these books. They are fantastic. If you want to get the ultimate Star Wars experience, always would recommend audio for them because the audiobook narrations tend to be fabulous. They have sound effects, they have Star Wars music. It is it's a whole production, it's a whole experience. You feel like you're living it. So I've realized that, and I've also really realized that I tend to prefer books where I know the characters, where there's somebody from the movies, somebody you're familiar with, somebody where you already have that emotional depth and emotional connection to them. It's a bit harder when we're following somebody completely new, a new adventure or an entirely new time period. But that being said, I really want to start getting into the High Republic books, and I think this is going to be the week that I do. I'm absolutely seeing so many recommendations from people now of different books that take place in the High Republic, different characters, different adventures that I might enjoy, and I'm excited to try something a little different and see what I do think, because yeah, I'm just absolutely loving these books. I'm loving being in the Star Wars world, and I'm just so ridiculously excited to see what I'm gonna love next. So I have a few audiobooks downloaded, I have a few that I have my eye on, and I haven't fully decided where I'm gonna start. What I do think though is, just because she's been such a hit for me, I'm gonna start off with the Claudia Gray book. Just keep the positive vibes rolling, make sure that this vlog starts off on the best possible scenario. And the one that I do have downloaded is Leia, Princess of Alderaan. Very clearly this centers Princess Leia. And this one, from what I've looked into, it follows her as she's a teenager and she's starting to get into life in the Senate, or starting to learn about being a senator. So I'm super excited for that one. I definitely think that will be a very good starting off point. Hopefully it'll be a book that I love, and we'll just really get the vibes rolling and really start this off with the most positive experience ever. So I will start that, and I'll probably check in around the 50% mark and let you guys know how it's going. So I started listening to Leia, Princess of Alderaan, which is by Claudia Gray, so we know it's gonna be great. And I got actually I'm 60% into it right now, because it's not a huge book, and it's just been a very fun listen so far. It's one that I very much have been able to put on while I'm working, and just kind of spend the day really enjoying this. So yeah, it's to no one's surprise at all, I'm enjoying this one a lot. Once again, Claudia Gray is proving that all of the books she writes are really just perfect for me, especially her Star Wars books are everything I'm hoping for. But let's actually get into the plot of this one. So as I'm sure you can guess from the title, we're following Princess Leia, and this is while she is a teenager and growing up on Alderaan and trying to figure out her place in the world. So she is going through these trials that you have to do to become officially named as heir to Alderaan, and part of it is she has to do this physical test, a mental test, and there's one more but I don't remember. So physical test, it's this big hiking adventure that she's going on with a bunch of other kids around her age. The mental test is she is in the junior senate, and she's helping do just learning about the Senate. They're tasked with these small problems to solve, and just really figuring out how everything works. We're following her as she's in this weird period of her life where she really realizes that what the Empire is doing is wrong, but she's trying to find her own place as if she becomes a princess, if she becomes the heir to Alderaan, how is she going to fight it in her own way while still standing up for her people and still making sure that they are okay. Also at this time, so her parents have kind of been a little standoffish lately from her. They're not really paying that much attention to her. they're kind of not taking any interest in her. And she's come to realize that this is because they are involved in something that they don't want her to know about because they want to protect her, and it goes a bit against the Empire. So you can guess where perhaps this is going. And it's just really interesting. So she's really trying to find her place in the world. She's really trying to figure out, like, when she becomes a politician, what type of politician is she going to be, and how is she going to help enact the change that her parents are working on, and like what type of fighting does she want to be involved in. So I think it's great. Yeah, the character of Leia, she's not coming through as strongly as, say, like in Bloodlines, where I felt like that was through Leia, because I guess she's a bit young in this one, but I'm really enjoying it. I think it's really fun. It's like a good view into her life as a teenager, and yeah, I really have nothing bad to say about this one so far. So I have finished reading Leia, Princess of Alderaan, and I'm not surprised. There's like no bit of surprise about this, but I really enjoyed it. I feel like Claudia Gray, as I've said before, is a fantastic writer of Star Wars books, so like I'm really not surprised at all that this one was as good as it was. I give it a 4-star, and I think the main reason that it wasn't higher is that this was very young, so we're following a teenage Leia, and it reads young. Like, obviously that's the targeted audience, that's more what this is for, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just not the targeted YA audience at this point. So like, as much as I enjoyed it, it was a little young, and I really did feel like we were reading from the perspective of a 16-year-old, which we were, you know, so it just, in that sense, it wasn't perfect for me. But otherwise, it was like a really good story about Leia discovering the rebellion and her kind of making the decisions in her life that led to her becoming a part of it, because even though her parents were involved in the early stages of the rebellion and getting everything set up, they were very much trying to keep it a secret from Leia, and they really did not want her involved because of how dangerous it was. But she managed to find out about it herself, and despite the fact that her parents were really pushing for her to stay away, she made that decision that she wanted to be a part of it, and that she couldn't stand by and watch everything that's happening in the Empire and just be like an ignorant part of it, and like just sit back and let it all happen. So she really made this decision that like she needs to be part of the rebellion, and it's all that, you know, she can do for herself, or it's what she feels she needs to do in her life. So I really like that. Like, you can see Leia as a 16-year-old very similar, like you can see the beginnings of the personality and the force that led to her like being how powerful of a woman she is, and how like forceful she is with her beliefs, and how ingrained she was within the rebellion. So I really enjoyed it that way. Like, I love seeing these parts of people's lives that haven't really been explored in the movies and that kind of stuff. So loved it, really loved it. And I'm not sure what I'm gonna go for next. I have a few more audiobooks downloaded. I'm kind of just deciding. I either have the next ones I'm gonna go to are either one about Count Dooku or one about Padme. So it depends what type of mood I'm gonna be in when I go to pick it up, but I think those are gonna be my next two options. Wearing a Star Wars shirt as always, and here to talk about the next book that I finished, which is Dooku. So in this one, we are following both Dooku as he was a young apprentice and just like a youngling at the temple, and his adventures through being chosen as Yoda's Padawan, and also like he somehow accidentally like goes to his home planet just through a Jedi mission and somehow finds his family. Like the Force guides him to his birth family, and from there he kind of becomes really involved in their lives, and it kind of like leads him almost to like realizing he doesn't want to be a part of the Jedi Order because he doesn't believe that like he should have to give away all of these relationships. So we're following that. We're following really like his entire journey as a youngling to a like Jedi master, to him having his own apprentices, and then him eventually making that decision to leave the Jedi Order. And there's also like an alternative timeline where we're just following as he's a Sith Lord. He has an apprentice named Prentice, and she is just kind of like investigating his life, and she is just completing this mission for him on his homeworld. So I thought this one super interesting. It was like, so the audiobook that I did, it was like a full cast narration, and it was fantastic. Like, all of the voice acting was so incredibly good, and the story was just really fast paced, really interesting. The audiobook itself was only about 6 hours, but like I think that was actually like the perfect amount, because it really just did like, we just quickly followed Dooku's life and all of the major things that like guided him to being who he became in his life, and all the decisions that he made to become ultimately a Sith. And I thought it was really fantastic that way. Like, I really think that this was like a wonderful exploration into his character, and just giving us more context on why he made the choices that he did and throughout his life. And then it was super interesting seeing this, like these complicated family relationships, especially when you consider that he was a baby who was given up to the temple to become a Jedi, and and he makes contact with his sister when he's, I think, 12 or so. And they keep up a lifelong relationship that really impacts him. It leads to him really not agreeing with the Jedis on why they have to give up like all familial relationships, all connections to outsiders, like why they can't actually feel love, or why this is like such a, you know, dangerous thing to the Jedi Order. But it was really fantastic. Really, really liked it. I'm giving it a 4-star, and I really think that this was an incredibly solid book. I'd highly recommend it to anyone because like it was super short, but that sometimes is better because it makes it less intimidating. But it was just a very, very solid story and incredibly interesting. So I finally finished another book, and it is Path of Deceit, which is written by Tessa Gratton and Justina Ireland. So this is a YA Star Wars book, and it's High Republic times. So chronologically, if you look at the like timeline of all the books, this is the very first one in the canon Star Wars books. So I decided to take a look at it, and I thought this was good. It was definitely young, but you know, what can you expect? So getting into the plot of this book. So from what I'm understanding, this is like a very isolated story in these canon Star Wars books, just because it does take place significantly before a lot of the other ones and in a world that isn't necessarily in the other books. This is at least so we're basically just following a cult. So this cult is called the Path of the Open Hand, and they basically just worship the cult, or worship the Force. So they have these really weird beliefs of they believe that they need to find any like Force related items, any items that the Force has touched, and bring them into their protection because they think they're going to be misused by the general population. And they also think that anybody who uses the Force is basically like causing a damage. They are like causing irreparable damage to the world because they are taking this thing that's supposed to be the force of the universe and bending it to their will, whereas it's supposed to be just something that everybody is always around and you don't necessarily interact with. You're just aware that it's there. So we're following a few members of this cult who have been grown up in it, very indoctrinated in it, and some people who are starting to possibly question if this message that they're being told is correct, and also if they really have a place in it. Then we're also following a Jedi and their apprentice as they come across the cult and start to investigate it, because they do believe that a lot of these missing artifacts that they've been trying to find are in the hands of the cult. So overall I thought it was pretty good. This one is a very solid like 3-star for me, where it was just like, okay, I don't really have too many complaints because I feel like it really delivered what it set out to do. The story overall was okay. It just was like we're following this mystery and these characters as they're trying to figure out who they are and what they want to do in life. My favorite part definitely was seeing like this really different way that these people view and interact with the Force compared to how the Jedi do, because this is like the first time, at least that I've ever seen, a group of people who have like such a strong belief about it other than what the Jedi Temple teaches. Like this is the first group of people I've seen who like really worship the Force but think that what the Jedi do is deeply wrong. So that was like really, really cool to see, and just like their day-to-day lives as they worship it and everything. I love that. And yeah, like I think it was pretty fun, and you know, solid 3 stars. My plans for next is I'm going to start on, there's a trilogy about Padme as she was the queen of Naboo, and I believe some of them are like her leaving the queendom and becoming a senator, and I'm really excited to start that one. I have the first 2 audiobooks checked out, so those are what I'm going to get into next, and I'm super, super excited for them. So there's a trilogy of books about Padme, and I've basically decided to dive into these, and these are going to be my next 3 reads, I guess. And yeah, I've done the first one, absolutely loved it, and it's interesting because there's books that follow her like as she becomes queen of Naboo, as she's finishing up her reign as queen and becoming a senator, and then there's the final one that's as she's a senator and just married Anakin and trying to figure out her life from that. So the one that I just finished, it's book 1. This series, it's by E.K. Johnson, and they're all YA, by the way. But the first one I read was called Queen Shadow, and it's kind of weird that this is the first one in the trilogy because like chronologically it's not the first in her story, but whatever. So this takes place as Padme is finishing up her reign as queen and is just about to, and at this point trying to figure out like what she wants to do next in life, because she really doesn't know. She thinks that she wants to stay within the political realm, but really like focus on anti-slavery after everything that she sees on Tatooine. And from here, as like a new queen is elected, they approach her and ask her if she wants to become a senator. And we're following her as she does this like transition from being a queen to trying to get more into the politics in Coruscant and get involved in everything there, and really like try to figure out what this new position means for her, and is it going to be better for her because she might actually be able to influence more within the galaxy instead of just her people. And it's pretty interesting. I thought it was definitely really good. It was a lot more just Padme as a person, her really like having these internal struggles, and just a bit more of like what the politics on Coruscant is like, what it's like being a senator, what these decisions for her are. And overall I did think that this one was really good. Loved seeing more about her handmaidens, which I think that's the next book I'm going to be reading, is much more focused on them. But I really like seeing that, this like behind the scenes of what it was really like of her being a queen, like just this different persona that she has to put on every time she does the makeup. And it was super interesting. It was really, really interesting. And then too, like just because she's no longer queen, it's not like all of these dangers are suddenly gone from her life, and she still has all of these issues that she's trying to resolve. And it was really good. Definitely a very solid book. I gave it a 4-star, I think. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one. So from there, I did also start the next one in the trilogy, which is Queen's Peril. And this is why I'm a little confused, because chronologically this one really should have came first, because we are following Padme as she's newly elected to be queen. So we're following the elections and then her being appointed queen and her starting to gather handmaidens and turn them into just, instead of just like her servants, they're also becoming her bodyguards, her body doubles, and all of these ideas that she has for her protection, and all of this like communication that the handmaidens are developing between each other, and how they're starting to come up with all these security protocols and get to know each other and everything. And I'm really, really enjoying it. It's very much like Padme figuring out who she is as a queen, and really like figuring out how she's going to rule, how she's going to deal with her security, which is with the handmaidens and all of this. And I think it's fantastic so far. We're still very much in the early days of her reign, so she hasn't really done too much yet, but she's talked a lot about like what she hopes to accomplish as queen, and a lot of it is just this training with the handmaidens. And I think it's super interesting to see, because I really have always wanted to know more about the behind the scenes of like what their training was like, how they came to be, like what their security protocols are, which is such a silly thing to want to know, but I'm super interested in it. And I'm really finding this book unbelievably good so far. And I'm not really sure like how far this is going, but there's been a few interesting scenes like taking place on Coruscant where you can see this like start of the Trade Federation coming in. So I'm really curious to see like if it's going to go into like the start of episode 1, like maybe that's where the book will leave off or something. But it's so cool because you can see like this implications of like these Senate bills that are being passed or rejected, and how this is slowly leading to the Neimoidians like starting off the blockade of Naboo, and you know it's coming. You can see all of the dice, like, or all of the dominoes start to fall for that blockade to start coming into place, and it's so cool to see. So I'm really interested to see like how far into that story this book ends up going, and I am really hoping that it will be like significantly into it. So yeah, this one I'm having a really, really good feeling about. Overall, this trilogy has been great so far, but Queen's Peril is definitely a huge winner so far, and I am like absolutely loving so much about this. So it's just a few hours later and I have finished reading Queen's Peril, and this one was so good. I absolutely loved it. Like I was saying before, we really followed this like start of Padme's rule, her relationship with her handmaidens, this like start of their like protocol, their body switching, their like all of the security protocols, her trying to adapt to being a queen, while still being a teenager, and like this jealousy she has sometimes with like when her handmaidens are closer to someone else because they're really all she has in her life for friends. And like it was just so good. And this did end up not only like going into the start of episode 1, but it fully like covered the entire plot of episode 1, The Phantom Menace. And it didn't really focus too much on that, but there were like a few chapters here and there of Padme's perspective or one of the handmaidens, just kind of like as their reactions of dealing to certain things, like what they're feeling as Padme's going out on Tatooine, how worried everybody is, what the body double handmaiden is feeling as she's pretending to be Queen Amidala the entire time that they're traveling with the Jedi, and a lot of like how they react, how they're feeling when they're dealing with the occupation of Naboo. And it was really fantastic. It's again like so many of these stories I love really finding like going into the stories that we're familiar with but seeing it from a different perspective, or just having like those different levels of insight of what's going on and how the people on the ground and dealing with it are actually feeling. And I find that so good. Like that's really been one of my favorite things that I've been finding in these Star Wars books, is just seeing these different perspectives, getting a bit more context to everything that's going on. And I'm just really loving seeing so much more of these handmaidens, and their relationship with Padme is so sweet. Like they're very much sisters who love everything, who love each other so much and would die for each other, but at the same time, you know, like they're teenage girls and they have problems. So it's been so good. I gave this one a 5-star. I loved it. I loved every part of it. It was so incredibly fantastic, and I'm just so happy with this series. I didn't realize how much I would love this one, but so good. So good. And I cannot wait. I have the 3rd book ready to go, and I cannot wait to dive into it, because this one's following Padme's secret marriage to Anakin and just kind of like her emotions dealing with that. And I can't wait. That sounds amazing. So I'm gonna start that one, and honestly, I anticipate finishing it pretty quickly, but I'm so ridiculously excited to do it. So I've started to read Queen's Hope, and it's fantastic. This entire trilogy has been so good, and I'm loving every bit of seeing Padme's inner world and like her handmaidens and everything. But this one is getting, I think, just like a bit more, I'm feeling a bit more for this one, because we're following right at where we start. It's about to be Padme and Anakin's wedding, and Padme is just kind of like dealing with this dilemma of the fact that she has to keep this such a secret from her handmaidens, her deep friends, like everybody in her life. And she's trying to plan this event, the wedding, which is very emotional, very private, but she's feeling so sad about the fact that she can't have all of her sisters there with her. And then we're even seeing her like trying to figure out how to make her wedding gown and how to do all of this stuff. And it's just really fantastic to see. I'm loving this so much. So yeah, we followed a bit of like the behind the scenes of their wedding, them getting married, them spending a few days like very happily in Naboo, and just like these happy first moments of marriage. And I'm really not that far into it, but where we're at, they're just separating because Padme has to go back to Coruscant for a mission, or back to Coruscant for the Senate, and Anakin obviously has to return to the Jedi Temple. But it's just like really cool seeing this. And I think most of this book is just going to be like their early days of trying to figure out this marriage and how to make the dynamics work while they keep everything secret. And I think I'm gonna love that. Okay, and so I'm done. And like I was saying, this is very much them trying to figure out like the dynamics of the relationship. Part of it, Padme's going on a mission, and she's trying to figure out what she can confide in her handmaidens with, what she can tell her friends, and they're just trying to find this way to like deal with, or she's trying to figure out how to grapple with the fact that she has this huge secret, but she can't really tell anybody in her life. And as much as she wants her sisters to know, she can't really. And it's just really interesting too, because like she's going on these missions and she's trying to figure out how much she can tell Anakin about them, and where's the line that they can draw between like Senate and Jedi. And it was great. It was really great. I just love seeing more of their relationship. And you know, it's cheesy as hell. Everything they were saying to each other was like very in vain with the terrible dialogue from episode 2, and just so ridiculously cheesy, but I love it. I can't deny that I love this an incredible amount. So I was just eating all of it up, and I loved this one so much. So, you know, 5-star for me. It was just really fantastic, and I'm so ridiculously happy that I actually got to this one. Yeah, I am so happy with this book. I loved it such a ridiculous amount. So with that, I'm going to be wrapping up this video, because I've now read 5 or 6 books, I guess. The Padme Trilogy, all of them were fantastic. I truly think that these are some like absolute winners, some of the best Star Wars books that I've read, just because, you know, I'm realizing that I really like to see the behind the scenes of characters that I already know and love. And I think that's really what I'm realizing, is that these are the books that I'm going to have the most emotional impact for me, because I already deeply care about these characters. And just seeing more of their lives, seeing like behind the scenes of the movies that we've watched and seeing things from different perspectives. I love it. I'm gonna always love these, always consider them favorites. And I say this every time, but I do really want to get more into the Old Republic or the High Republic books. Maybe next time I'll really put more of an emphasis on reading those, because the one I did read was interesting, but definitely not a favorite. And I'm curious to see more about these worlds. I don't necessarily think they will be favorites, but they could be good. But yeah, I definitely realized that I love reading the books about characters that I care about. So this is going to be the end of the video. Very, very happy with how this turned out. So many great books, so many wonderful stories. And yeah, follow me if you are interested in more Star Wars content, because I will be doing so many more of these books. I have a ridiculous list to work through, and I'm working on that for a different project. But yeah, please subscribe if you're interested in sci-fi as well. And hopefully I will see you guys in a new video. Hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.